Good evening and welcome to Walk the Plank, the pre-show before the show of Dead and Buried Treasures tonight. Ooh, spooky castles, people who come back from the dead, and of course, the most voluptuous Barbara Steele in a movie called The Ghost from 1963. This is considered a classic, and we'll talk all about that. Plus, we have a live segment, and we are ties in with the Whiskey Rebellion. What museum are we at?
Oh, the Bradford House Museum in Washington, Pennsylvania, home of the Whiskey Rebellion.
Got a whole live thing for that you'll really enjoy. Plus, we're going to dip into the mailbag, of course. We'll talk to you about the movie, a little bit what's going on behind the scenes, all that good horror stuff that you've come to know and love watching this show. So, get ready for all kind of piratey good deals and monstrous affairs. And if you don't stick around, well then just walk the plank.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Walk the Plank officially. I am Fiore Mastracci, and of course I am not channeling Rex Reel tonight, but instead we're going on the Barney Seas, if you know.
Me hearties.
The creator of Dead and Buried Treasures and alter ego of Captain Calico Drake, Erik Sprowls, is here with me tonight.
I feel like that sometimes it's like Clark Kent Superman, like nobody knows who I am, but when I put on that hat, like the kids want to come at you and tug and pull and everything.
Well, you look better in the hat.
I do.
Yes, much better in the hat.
I do. I look younger for sure. I have hair.
Yes, covers most of your face, too. Speaking of faces, I got to tell you something. You know, when Erik said we want to come on the show and help me out, the first thing I saw was Barbara Steele is in this movie. And you have no idea the kind of palpitations that this man goes through when Barbara Steele is on screen.
Oh, yeah.
She grabs your libido
she
and
does.
twists it like a washcloth.
She does.
So.
That's why I think she's in a tie with Vincent Price for the most movies we've hosted on the show so far. But you got to admit, there was a little bit of a lure for you coming on to host a show with Barbara on there, was there not?
Always.
Because I said, remember we said yesterday, I said, we ought to get her on the show. Do like a Zoom call or something and get her and do like a, and I'm still working that out.
And she's got a lot of, accolades and that you could talk about. Mm-hmm. But I think the big thing is that back in her heyday, and this movie was made back in 1963, so mm-hmm. it was just as she was starting out and becoming really big. It was right after she had done Black Sabbath, and that really mm-hmm. had spurred her career. But in any event, she specialized, shall we say, mm-hmm. in these roles where she was very sexy. Oh. And let me make sure I get all this right.
You know what?
I want to.
It does. It seems like all her movies are the same. They have her in something scantily clad.
Yep.
And then she has an affair.
Yep.
And then they murder the husband. And then they wonder if he's coming back as a ghost. It's like the '60s in Italian cinema had like a certain plate that you followed, like a standard for her movies, and they're a lot of fun.
They are, and Riccardo Frito was the director who I was looking for, and he directed her in this. He directed her in a couple of other movies as well, but he said after the movie had opened and had a rather successful opening weekend, he said, "I'm just glad that the censors were okay with what was in there." So this is kind of a racy little movie, especially for 1963.
Yeah.
But Barbara Steele is known as the queen of the queens of Scream. So she's
long before Jamie Lee, long before Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah.
Even I guess you could call Neve Campbell she was in the '90s for the Scream movies. But I mean, like she's
up there.
She's very good, right? And you know what the funny thing is? Her voice is always dubbed over in the movies that we watch because it was Italian cinema, and they'll always do somebody else that makes her sound so sexy. Her voice is nothing like what you hear dubbed in English, and it's just as sexy back in the day. And she's just a very talented actress. I love to show her movies. A lot of fun. If I'm going by on a channel and I lands on a Barbara Steele movie, it's like, ooh, what do we have here? Get the popcorn. You know?
Well, she is British, and she started in Britain, and things didn't go well enough for her there. So she said, you know what, I'm done with this, and she went over to Italy, and that's really what spawned her career. But she was a big draw over there in Italy. And in this movie tonight, she's married to Dr. Hitchcock. Why is that important? It's because it's the second time in doing her movies over there that she's been married to Dr. Hitchcock. And Dr. Hitchcock was different in both movies, no relationship whatsoever. I think she just had a thing for Hitchcock.
Yeah, I thought to myself, you know, did you ever see the movie Hitchcock with Anthony Hopkins? And he was kind of a, what's the word I can use?
Bombastic, maybe?
Sexually charged individual. And I'm like, ooh, wouldn't it make sense to have her being around in doing one of Alfred Hitchcock's movies? But it's not. It's a totally different, and it's not the Hitchcock, the Dr. Hitchcock with Vincent Price. It's this is another gentleman who just saw the opportunity to cast a wonderfully beautiful, talented actress such as Barbara Steele, and what a great dame too. But in one of his films, and it's a lot of fun to watch. So,
and you know, you had mentioned about the dubbing of the voice, and when this movie was first released, that was one of the things they brought up. They brought up in the critics did at the time. Brought up the fact that the dubbed dialogue was absolutely horrendous. And if you watch the movie in its original Italian and then you listen to the dubbed version, it's almost like two different movies. That's how badly they messed up the dub and didn't do the timing right or anything like that at all. But one thing the critics did agree is that this movie visually looked absolutely amazing. And you'll be able to see that tonight.
Yeah, why don't we take a look at the trailer?
Good idea. Here is Barbara Steele in The Ghost.
From beyond the veil he speaks, and rides unseen to mark this house with the black sign of death. They knew the terror of fear. Stop it! Stop it! Stop! And the frenzy of limitlessly indulging their lusts until the ghost turned their love into the violence of avaricious hate.
Okay, so there's a look at The Ghost. It does look rather spooktacular.
I thought so.
Yeah, I think you're going to probably enjoy this tonight. You know, we mentioned earlier that Barbara was still alive and still winning accolades. Well, she's retired from the business now, but my God, this woman was working all the way up into the like 2017 or what have you. She was elected to the, let me get this one right, Fangoria Chainsaw Awards Hall of Fame. How many people get that honor, right?
No, I think she's probably the only one, but it's well deserved.
After she left Italy and she came back to America and she met Dan Curtis.
Oh, really?
And Dan Curtis, of course, as you know, was Dark Shadows and a whole lot of schlock B horror movies, which were a lot of fun. And naturally, once you meet Dan Curtis, you team up with him and you do things, and she won an Emmy working with Dan Curtis because after she was a little bit older, She went behind the camera instead of in front of the camera.
Was it the Winds of War?
Was
it the Winds of War? Something about the
War and Remembrance.
War and Remembrance.
It was the sequel.
Yeah.
To the Winds of War.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and she won an Emmy for that. So.
Not bad.
Yeah, not bad at all. Huh?
Yeah. Not only does she look good, but she's
talented.
Talented too.
We like that.
I like that in a woman.
Okay, before this gets in trouble, let me tell you that tonight's show is. Well, it's a little bit different. I mean, you're used to usually seeing the movie and having Captain Calico Drake and all of his refinery fighting nefarious no-goods along the high seas with much hijinks and yo-ho-ho and a barrel of rum. But tonight is something a little bit different, and I think this is kind of fun.
Well, about 6 months ago, I contacted the Bradford House Museum in Washington, Pennsylvania, and they used to do haunted tours there. And I said, I'm in the viewing area, I'm in the area, can we arrange something? So they didn't want to do a haunted tour. Instead, they wanted me to sit down in front of a campfire and behind the museum, where they have a beautiful log cabin, and you get into the mood of being in the Revolutionary War era, 1700s, early 1800s, and tell ghost tales. And Tracy Libertor, who is the the caretaker or the curator of the Bradford House Museum, said, "Why don't you read creepy tales around the campfire, and maybe we could even use it as a fundraiser for the museum?" I said, "Oh, that sounds fun." So the one thing she wanted, and the one thing I said, we wanted to have the tales be true about the area. Haunted tales of Washington County. And since Washington County was in its infancy back then, and Pennsylvania, there was no Ohio at the time, and there was no West Virginia. There was just Virginia that became West Virginia. Texas and all these other western states weren't even around. I said, there's something about that era that just makes it very creepy if you do it the right way. And you want to include some tall tales, a little piratey hijinks, and some truth to the matter. These are all the stories you hear tonight are going to be in truth. With maybe a little tall tale here or there, but they're all about what the area that the Bradford House Museum was next to back in the infancy days of Pennsylvania. And I thought, oh, the colonial times, that's very cool. So we did a little research, and we found some semi-true tall tales, we'll call it, that can't be confirmed because, there aren't records about this kind of thing back then, but we thought we'd take a stab and have Calico Drake sit down and, read a couple of these ghost tales and see, go from there and have a lot of fun. And they used it as a fundraiser at the museum and raised quite a bit of money for the effort and had a lot of fun. I thought it was great. I mean, we sat down, they went out of our way, we had a big campfire, and we're reading these tales. And we started at daylight, and we finished after dark. But Nick Callis from BPTV, our flagship station in Bethel Park, managed to get some correct lighting for us. Even had like a little bit of a flicker with it. He called it a fire. It gives the illusion of being fire and kind of creepy. And it was a good night. We had a lot of fun. Lots of fun, lots of creepy tales, and it went over real well.
So thumbnail summation, if you will. What was the creepiest tale you read?
There were a couple that we wanted to include some of the regional viewing area. So in that viewing area is Route 40 that goes from the East Coast all the way through west. I don't know if it reaches the West Coast, but so we included a couple tales along the way. So one of the places that happened to be on Route 40 is Fort Necessity, which was General Washington's first command when he was still British. Before I think he was a lieutenant. This was long before President Washington, George Washington on the Family Dollar, not on any of that stuff. This was back in the day when it was like they went out to these woods, and when the French and this actually is one of the events that launched the French and Indian War. They made a circular fort, And we tell some ghost stories that happen along the way out there. We also tell some with Washington and Jefferson College, with a young lady that supposedly, again, there's no way to confirm it, decided to off herself in the bell tower, and it's now the legend is called the Blue Ghost. And we go into that. So there's a lot of creepy colonial kind of setting for you to get into, to hear some good ghost stories. And we originally shot this live, and we were going to do it as a Halloween special. But of course, I had some health problems last year and I had mentioned this on the other show when Nick was hosting, the stroke I had, and I'm making a full recovery, let's hope, and then some back issues and things like that. So I've gotten my health back on track, and hopefully we're all psyched up for another season of Fright and Mayhem. So,
you don't think your bad health came from retelling any of these ghost stories?
I thought about that. Like, oh, I did that, huh? Let's haunt this guy. And man, they did a good job. So I was down for the count. This is our 6th season full of Fright and Mayhem. And last year we just couldn't pull off a lot. So we actually kind of combined a couple seasons to get up to at least 5 or 6 different episodes. But man, I'd like to get back to the monthly show of doing once a month. But there's a lot of care that goes into the show, from writing to special effects to costuming and casting for different characters. In fact, you're on an upcoming episode.
I remember that
vaguely. That's down the pike, where you're a villain on the show, and just different stuff is in the can.
Forced me into doing things I would never normally have done. It was just so bizarre.
You just want to be on TV.
I don't know if it was his influence or the single malt. I'm not sure which.
I just have this thing in my head where you go, seize them! Like the Wicked Witch, and I thought that'd be kind of a lot of fun. So that's coming down the pike.
I think I did that too.
I think. Yeah, so the Bradford Museum was a lot of fun, and we hope to maybe make it an annual event. We'll see.
And we kicked this whole new season off with tonight's movie, The Ghost, and we're right back again to Barbara Steele. Perhaps now, in your most tactful manner, you should describe to the audience just what it is that you so admire in Babs.
Well, I think we have to do that edited for television.
He didn't know this was coming. I put this one on him right now.
We have to do this edited for television.
Oh, you could do it right now.
She's a very pretty, a very gorgeous woman, very talented, and I've heard her accent and I've heard her voiceovers, and she's just something about her that just gets your pirate heart pumping a bit, But before we get too much into that, we probably should take a break and hear a word from our sponsor.
Well, we do have a sponsor, and actually this looks like an awful lot of fun.
Yeah, it's Indiana Short Round from Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom, the Goonies. Ki Hai Kwan, I think that's how you pronounce his name, has grown. He's won an Oscar, and he's coming up with a movie called Love Hurts. That's a little sci-fi pop culture, and I thought it'd be a lot of fun.
Well, this spurred because he did Everything, Everywhere, All at Once.
That's the one.
And in that movie, he was just... Nobody really realized, at least American audiences did not realize that he had this martial arts ability. And
right, I didn't.
He's very good.
And he does it all, right?
So he was told initially, he was saying, I'm doing it for this movie and then I'm done. Money has a way of talking you into the box office once again. So this is the first movie he's done since then. And it looks like there's a whole lot more action in this than...
Yeah, so I tell you what, he sat down and did a little bit of fun with us with talking about the movie, and here's what they said.
Hello, I am Ki Hui Kwan, and I play Marvin Gable.
Hello! Morning, Marvin!
Everything that I have done the last 20 years
Ki Hui Kwan, ladies and gentlemen,
was a preparation for this movie.
So good.
Love Hurts, it's about Marvin Gable, who is seemingly a very simple guy, and very quickly we realized he is anything but simple.
52A, take one!
I remember reading the script for the very first time. I was very confused why they would offer me the role of Marvin Gable, because I thought it was written for somebody else. In fact, I said, you should be calling Jason Statham. And I understand that what they were trying to achieve was to create a different kind of action star. Someone that is not afraid to be vulnerable or wear his emotions on the sleeves. I'm so sorry. Going into this, I wanted to be able to do all the fights myself. And I trained with our guys for a long time trying to get myself in shape in preparation for this because I knew that we were doing something special. And man, it was hard, it was tough. A normal day at the office.
It was really great to have Key in this role because he has an incredible action background as a former stunt performer and stunt actor.
New day, new blood. To me, Love Hurts is kind of my answer to those people who find my story inspiring. Me, like being #1 on the call sheet, starring in a Universal Studios picture, I didn't think that would ever happen. We're not trying to do anything but just to entertain you for 90 minutes. And fans are gonna love it.
Welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen. We want to thank Love Hurts for sponsoring this version of Walk the Plank. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for, we dip into our mailbag.
I love this part.
Ahoy! The first question comes from Sandra Lockwood. I think I dated her once. Anyway, she's from Baldwin, Pennsylvania. Well, that
Clint
was Clint Eastwood's
wife,
girl,
yeah.
She's dead now.
Yeah.
Or maybe she comes back. I don't know.
Perfect for the show.
And Sandra says, "Ahoy, Captain. Thanks for welcoming me aboard. Our family and I love the show very much, and we are always looking forward to many more shows. It's really nice to introduce my kids to movies from yesteryear, as well as my husband, who also is from yesteryear. He doesn't have a lot of knowledge about old school horror as much as present day. I see you're hosting The Ghost tonight from 1963. Will you be hosting any other Barbara Steele movies this season?"
Possibly. We've hosted a lot of Barbara Steele. We said in the beginning of the show, she's up there with Vincent Price for a lot of horror films. But we did Nightmare Castle. We did The Long Hair of Death. We did Black Sunday. I would love to. She's done a lot of good stuff. So I'm not going to say no, but I mean, we do have some other horror films we have to get down the pike. But I love hosting Barbara Steele Slicks, so we might. Who knows? We might get around to that. Hopefully, we do. But I got another social media. This one I saw comes from Tony Breiker in Clearwater, Florida. I guess they're watching on the national network, WTP. And he says, "I hope you take my question on the air, Captain, because I was wondering why there's been such a time lapse between shows over this past year. I had heard that you had some health problems, and we're hoping you're back on track now." Yeah, I'm hoping to be. I didn't popularize it. I don't even think it went out in the fan club newsletters, but like I had a stroke back in the spring. I was burning the candle at both ends. And my alter ego and my real life alter ego, I'm also a college professor. And I was going for a position at a university for an associate professor position. And I was burning the candle at both ends. I wanted to put in a certain number of hours at the TV station, get all my everything. It was just too much. I had too many things going on with the show and whatnot. And I should have been smarter about it. And but I look at it as kind of a good thing because it kind of told me to lose some weight. So, I mean, I lost some weight. I want to keep my weight down. I want to keep in the good health regime area. So regimen area. So hopefully, yeah, we're back on the track now. We're going to start making some shows back on track what we were doing before. Yeah, so.
Our next letter asks the question, do you have any plans on bringing Jasper the Caretaker back anytime soon? My family and I watch you guys every Friday night when a show drops on Facebook and Saturday nights at midnight on DBTV. And that question comes from Peter Petropoulos in Lexington, Kentucky.
Yes, absolutely. Jasper the Caretaker is a big part of the show. So is everybody who does the show. Mirabella the Mermaid, we just happened to hit an area where we didn't need them as much. And of course, my health kind of prolonged things. So yes, absolutely. Jasper will be back on the show, as will all the characters. Professor Gertie, Mirabella, Annette, everybody. So they'll all be back on the show. So yeah, we're not losing them anywhere. It's just my health is just put everything on a big stop for a while. So now I'm getting back on the train, and we'll see how things go from there.
Yeah,
so
one.
hopefully it'll be another great season. Here I have another question too. This one is
Ahoy!
This next letter from Patricia Arbogast from right here in Bethel Park. Okay. Thank you for taking my letter, Captain Drake. We are avid viewers and members of your fan club and watch you right here on BPTV Channel 21 in Pittsburgh. My aunt has recently gotten into your show, but she lives in Sweeney, Idaho. She watches you on DBTV and wanted me to ask, since she moved to Pittsburgh, she's always looking for national venues to watch your show on now. She noticed your YouTube channel is not as active as it once was and was wondering if you would be updating it anytime soon. Well, the problem with YouTube is...
Where do we begin, huh?
Yeah, it's the problem with YouTube is they like to buy a lot of the public domain movies. I'm not complaining, don't get me wrong. It's their network. They buy the public domain movies, then they want to charge you to watch them. So whenever we host the public domain movies and we put it on YouTube, they'll contact me and give me a strike, so to say, and say, you can't be doing that. These movies, it's their network. So if they want to sell the movies, they're not going to, people would rather, how can I say that? People would probably, if there's a public domain movie they want to watch, would probably watch on my show where it's free, as opposed to, purchasing it through YouTube. So we're trying to get around that now. Some people have said, well, can't you just put the segments on there? So now there's a way of, we're probably just going to put the hosted segments on the air there. Without the movie. Mm-hmm. And we're in post-production on that. So a lot of people still wanted to see the segments without the film. So that's probably what we're going to do on some of the ones that we host that YouTube hasn't bought the rights to. Does that make sense? I think so. So I think that's probably what we're going to end up doing at this time forward. But, we'll see.
Well, should we go one more? Or?
Yeah, I think, why not? We'll got time for one more.
Ahoy!
One more out of the mailbag. Our next question comes from social media from Erik Kravitz in Philadelphia. Should we say go Eagles?
Yeah, go.
Okay.
That's a whole other subject.
Hey, we got a groan there.
I'd rather see them than the Chiefs. But
ahoy, Captain. I'm a member of your fan club and love it very much. I noticed that there hasn't been a newsletter for a couple of months and was wondering what was happening. Will there be one coming out anytime soon? We love the photos and behind-the-scenes insight you have and have to stay in touch with the show mainly via your Facebook page. Also, do you have a website?
Well, that's a lot there.
Yeah, there is.
We're in the process of developing a website. I know I've said that for quite a while now, but we're trying to develop it soon. But yeah, as far as the newsletter, again, it all goes back to me. It's my fault, my issue with the health. So hopefully we're going to get better. I get better and we continue to go forward. And so, yeah, we should be back on track soon. Yeah, so, yeah, we'll see.
Ahoy!
And that's a fair helping from the mailbag. We probably should thank the producers and the studio for Love Hurts for sponsoring, again, this episode of Walk the Plank.
Thank you.
Wrap this up.
Yeah, and I want to also send a shout out to the Bradford House Museum, Tracy Libertor, the curator there, for wanting us to come out there and do some creepy ghost tales that you're going to see on tonight's show. And I also wanted to thank Nick Callis for setting us up in the studio today. You, of course, for coming over and hosting the Walk the Plank show. Well, there'll be a different sponsor tonight for the movie. We're sponsored by Heart Eyes.
Heart Eyes.
Yes, it's a serial killer who is killing the couples on a Valentine's Day. So
not your normal Cupid.
No, so that'll be a lot of fun too. So stay tuned. It'll be a lot of fun tonight.
So this was an awful lot of fun. I thank you for asking me to come around. Stay tuned because Barbara Steele is up next in The Ghost and all of those semi-true horror tales. Have a good evening.
We'll see.